Hello everyone and welcome to Stan the Wine Man TV. I am your host, Stan Rattan, and this is the Blue Collar Wine Program where my goal is to help you get the best bang for your buck, to spend your wine money wisely. You know what we want to do? We don't want to waste our money on a bad bottle of wine. Today I decided to do Cotes du Rhone and Rhone style, a Rhone style wine from Washington, because Washington is kind of on that same parallel as the Rhone Valley. So I have two wines, Cotes du Rhone, just your average wines that you'd find in a grocery store, not hard to find. I find it interesting about Cotes du Rhone is that in the store I work at, it's a tough sell. I don't know why. It's a blend. Blends are a huge category. You go over to, people go, where are your blends? You take them over to the, the Washington and California blends, and they just, ooh and ah. But, I get it. Now, they're very interesting wines, absolutely. And certainly they don't hold any specific varietals. I mean, they can go all over the place with the blends. But, that being said, Cotes du Rhone, out of southern France, the southern Rhone Valley, are blends. Predominantly Syrah Grenache, maybe a little Mourvedre, maybe a little Cinsault, but predominantly Syrah Grenache. And I think a lot of folks, just kind of have a hard time grasping that concept. I mean, let's just face it, France has been blending for a long time. Bordeaux is all about blends. Cab Merlot, Cab Franc, Petit Verdot. Those are the blends out of the Bordeaux region. You get a few exceptions like Petrus, which is mostly Merlot, Cheval Blanc, those. But, that being said, they are blends. They're blends out of Cotes du Rhone, for sure. You get up in northern Rhone, it's a little different. They're predominantly Syrah. Very famous region in the southern Rhone is Châteauneuf-du-Pape. People pay a lot of money for those, although they are considered a good value compared to Bordeaux. I mean, you can get a lot of very nice Châteauneuf-du-Pape for under $100. Not so easy out of Bordeaux. I mean, we're talking top producers. Out of Bordeaux, they can be anywhere from $600 to $1,400-1,500 on release. Whereas some of the prominent producers, Beaucastel, guys like that in the southern Rhone, Châteauneuf-du-Pape, they're rolling under $100 in most cases, and maybe barely $100. So they're considered good values. Well, Cotes du Rhone is a broader, region. It kind of encompasses a lot of different areas in southern France, and so it's considered not, obviously not at the level of a Vaccaraz or a Châteauneuf-du-Pape, things like that. But that being said, there's still, some nice wines. They roll in at very reasonable prices. And then I threw in a Washington Rhone style blend from Glenfiona, and this is part of my little thing. I've got a rack here and a rack there and a rack there. I mean, these are wines that have been sitting around for quite a while, kind of older wines. One of the things about being a wine steward, a wine specialist in a wine store, you get a lot of samples thrown your way. I can't say I'm always super vigilant about getting through all of them all of the time. I try my best. People always go, you got a tough job. Well, I wouldn't trade it for the world. But guess what? If you have any sort of conscientiousness, you're going to realize you need to get through these wines. Well, some have slipped through the cracks, including, I believe, but actually I think the Glenfiona was given to me by somebody at an event I went to. Said, here, take this home, Stan. I think you'll enjoy it. I don't think they were expecting a review. But so I'm going to start hitting off of my rack some of these older vintages, just have a little fun. You guys can see how they're doing, see if they're evolving in a nice way. So let's get started right off the bat. The first one I'm going to do is 2010 Domaine Coran Cotes du Rhone. Remember, leave the S out. It's not Cotes du Rhone. It's Cotes du Rhone, 2010. And this one rolls in at $11. $11-12, good value. Let's see what we get. Now you go the next level up in Cotes du Rhone. It's Cotes du Rhone Village or villages. It comes out of specific villages, so it has a little bit higher quality, you could say. Although I find a lot of Cotes du Rhone to be very good for the money. So I noticed a little bit of staining on the glass, which is kind of curious. I like to see that. So this one does not give the blend on the wine, but no doubt mostly Syrah and Grenache. Grenache and Syrah are really the king and queen, you could say, or the top dogs. Let's go there. Top dogs of the Southern Rhone. Let's see what we get on the nose. A little blackberry. Get a little bit of licorice, like black licorice. Some blue fruit, kind of curious. I get a little blueberry coming through. I get the earthiness on this, a little bit of dusty rock. Definitely some beauty bark, you know, the bark you can see, you know, they use it for landscaping. You know, I get that on the nose. And just a touch of stink. I'm going to, by the way, on StanTheWineman.com, one of my words of winedom, I do call it words of winedom, word of the day, is going to be stink. I think that kind of needs to be defined a little bit, what we mean by stinky. I mean, stinky has a broad range. It can go from full-on poopy, barnyardy to, you know, just a little bit kind of a, you know, not maybe rotten fruit almost, but not rotten fruit. That's a bad one. Just a little hint of stink. So there's a broad range there. Get a little leather on this. Let's see what we get on the palate. A lot of minerality, a little bit of crushed rock thing going on. Nice, I get the blueberry, almost like a plummy element coming through. Blackberry, a little bit of underlying strawberry notes. I think the real key to, you know, you're saying this is the old world wine, is there's good acid backbone on this. It's not the predominant part of the wine, but it keeps it fresh. Keeps it fresh on the palate. You know, kind of lifts the fruit a little bit. I get the beauty bark coming through on the back end. It definitely hits me on the back side of the palate. You know, very earthy, very minerally, but still enough fruit, enough of that black fruit, blue fruit. Good concentration, actually. That leather and bark comes through at the back end. That's a really good wine. I mean, $11. I could see you barbecuing with that. You know, doing some like nice steaks on the barbecue, some hamburgers, maybe some hot dogs. Yeah, good play. I'm gonna have to give that one a B+. For $11, QPR, quality to price ratio, that is a good bottle of wine. Let's move on to the next one. Now this next one is Paul Jaboulet, Parallel 45, Cotes du Rhone. Very, very, you see this a lot in grocery stores. Of course, Parallel, as you know, is the latitude of the vineyards in the Cotes du Rhone. And this rolls in at $10. This has been $10 like forever. And I notice a good staining on the glass on this one too. This one actually gives you the blend, which I appreciate. 60% Grenache, 40% Syrah. $10. Let's see what we get on the nose. So this gets into the more, you know, a little bit of stink, leather, bark, minerals, definitely a minerality, like dusty rocks. There's a little bit of currant, blackberry, a little bit of a hint of blue fruit, not a lot. This is a, you know, it's almost like perfumey on the nose, which is interesting. I wonder what the alcohol content is on this one. 2010, I hope I mentioned that, 2010. So these are both 2010. This is 14.5. Yeah, 14% alcohol. The Quran was Alcohol, where are you? 14.5, 2010 also. There you go. You know, get a little bit of underripe blueberry under there, you know, like a little bit on the green side. Let's see what we get on the palate. This is a little bit more on the meaty side. I get more of that kind of a stewed meat flavor to it. The acid is there, another indicator of Old World. Has a nice lifting acid. I think the acid was a little bit higher than the Quran, giving it a brighter aspect on the palate. I could see this more with a barbecued ribs than the other one with the hamburgers and so forth, but I still think it would work. Not quite as deep as the Quran. I mean, it's just a little more simple. I get a little red fruit, blue fruit coming through, like underripe blueberries, maybe some you know, blackberry with a little blackberry stem thrown in there. There's definitely a minerality to this one. A lot of crushed rock. A little bit of bark coming through, leather. You know, it's a good wine. I'm not going to say jump up and down and go grab this one for 10 bucks. I would go for the Quran for 11. I'm going to give this one a C plus B minus. I like it. I mean, it's good wine. It's above average. But, you know, it's a little bright. You know, not as complex. I mean, you're expecting complex for $10, but still, you know, it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. There's nothing bad about it. I just think it's a C plus B minus wine. $10. It'd be great with barbecued, you know, like barbecue sauce, because that acidity would break that down. Maybe some pepperoni pizza would be good with this one. You know, $10. You know, it's a good play. But I would go for the Cron. Just saying. So let's move on to the next one, which is a 2003 Cuvée Parallel 46, Walla Walla Valley, Glenfiona, Rhone Style Red, and of course, as you would expect, it's a little bit more money. It is $25. Now, you know, some of the best Syrah, as I mentioned before, comes out of Washington and the Rhone Valley. Definitely Washington has Syrah down pat. This is a 2003, got some age on it. I'm not expecting you to be able to go out and find this in the grocery store, but I thought you'd like to experience how something like this can age. So it's, what, 11 years old? Let's see what we get on the nose. So there's a little bit of a minty marinade component. Very like raisiny on the nose, which would tell me, you know, it's got some age on it. That's what you would expect. A little bit of tardiness, raisin, currant. There's a little bit of a baking spice component, which I find interesting. I can just tell from the color, it's got a little bit of, you know, it's actually, the color isn't bad. You know, it's, I wish I had a white piece of paper to show you, but I do not right now. I get a little bit of bark on this one, not a lot. Definitely the fruit is a prominent part, which you'd expect from the New World, of course. A little bit more fruit than organic earth or inorganic earth or things like that. Let's see what we get on the palate. This one has good acid too, surprisingly. currants, raisins, tar, spice all day. The acid is amazing. This wine is really fleshing out really nicely. It's getting a little bit of that oxidized fruit flavor, but it's not not terrible. I mean, you can taste it in the kind of raisinated fruit that you get here. But it hasn't gone south by any stretch of the imagination. It's certainly holding its own with the acid. I mean, I'm surprised I just have to tell you, I'm surprised at how acidic that is. I wonder what it was like when it was younger. That raisinated kind of blue and black fruit coming through. Good spice. I mean, to me, it's just like, it's getting on the raisin side with the bright acid. Kind of is interesting. I mean, I don't know how to put a finger on whether or not the acidity is too much for the fruit right now. I mean, it's a good wine. I wouldn't, it's got a little bit of that meaty action going on too. I'm definitely getting a little pencil-letty thing going on. A little tar, black fruit, blue fruit. It lingers on the palate. You got this interesting baking spice thing going on. I'm impressed. It's a 2003. It's aging pretty nicely. I don't know where it's going to go. I really, I mean, let's face it. We can't always, wine is a living thing. It's constantly changing. And so it's really hard to tell where this wine is going to go. It has that pencil lead, good fruit. Acid is definitely lifting. Not bad. I don't know if I'd clamor for it. I'm gonna go BB minus on this one. Just because I'm so impressed with the how it's fleshing out. I'm just not sure where it will go in the next couple of years because of that raisinated fruit. It could actually go like full-on raisin juice, right current, acid drops off, but it's hard to tell. Yeah, BB minus. All right, so this is one of the first wines I pulled out of my rack that's been sitting there way too long. Should have probably tasted it a couple years ago, but it's doing nicely. I mean, I think a lot of you who, if you've saved an 03 Glenfiona Parallel 46 Rhone Style Red, $25, you might be impressed with it now. It's okay, yeah. So don't forget Cotes du Rhone this summer. They're not super heavy. They're a little lighter style reds. They don't have, like that Coran is excellent for $11. Great for barbecue. If you want just a little red to sit around, you don't want it to be big, heavy, tannic, giant, go for Cotes du Rhone. They're really good values. They represent well-spent money, and I think you'll like them. Just ask your wine guy, which one to look for, because there's a lot of great values out there. There really are. I'm impressed with all of these. Yeah, $25 is a lot of money. But I mean, it's still worth it. All right, thanks for watching, and cheers. Here's to keeping the snob out of wine.